My name is Jackie McGlynn. I'm a grateful recovering alcoholic. And as Gene Burney used to say, you got to get that microphone down to her level, and I'm about at her level. So, I haven't had a drink since December 22nd, 1982, and for that I am truly grateful to this program, to my God, and to everybody in any room I've ever been in that practices Alcoholics Anonymous. When I first got here, I was so fearful that I wore rearview mirrors on both elbows. And that's pretty scary. But I want to start with, I was born in the big city of Houston, Texas. Of course, when I was born, Houston wasn't much bigger than what Tyler is now. However, it's got a lot bigger. And I was talking to a member in the program this afternoon, and I haven't given much thought to what I wanted to say because I want this to be God's talk. But the one thing that keeps going over and over in my head is, I was just now talking about fear, is as a child, I remember being different and not fitting in with any of the kids in the neighborhood. And I have a picture to prove that. It was somebody's birthday on the street, and all the other kids are around the birthday person and the cake. And where the hell is Jackie? Off to the west of them, sitting in a chair, not even looking at them. Now I had a problem. I didn't know what that problem was. My father was a full-blown alcoholic by the time I was born. My mother was a teetotaler. Every New Year's, she would have 1 tablespoon of J.W. Dent 100 proof, which was what my father drank, and a 8-ounce glass of eggnog, and I swear the woman was a drunk. But that's the type of house I grew up in. And my grandmother was a big part of my life, my father's mother. And she made the mistake of telling me when I was a child that there are 3 perfect people in the world. One is God, the other was her, and the third was me. So I thought I was perfect all my life, and I could do no wrong. And it was all those other people that was the problem in my life because they wouldn't do what I wanted them to do. Imagine that. And I just kept trying and trying. And I remember drinking at a young age because it was there. If Daddy had a beer, I could drink if I wanted. I'd go to in Houston, we called them ice houses. We didn't call them outside bars. We called them ice houses. And they were some pretty run-down, lowly places. And I remember going to those with my dad. And I'd sit up on the bar stool next to him. And he'd drink a beer, and he'd say, "You want some?" And I'd drink it. Because it made me feel like I belonged. I didn't know that at the time. But now that I look back, it made me feel like it was okay to be there and to be with those other people. Now, my mama, she didn't go with us to the bar. She stayed home and took care of that bratty little brother of mine. Because when he was born, I certainly didn't like him. And there were times all through my life I didn't like him. However, he's turned out to be one of my best friends. So that's my family history. On both sides of the family, there were practicing alcoholics. It just wasn't a very safe place for a child to be growing up. And however, I continued on. And as I got a little bit older, and I was nearly the only girl on the street. There was a girl that lived next door to us that was a couple of years older than I was, and So I'd play baseball with the guys and football with the guys, and you know, they wouldn't do it my way. And all of a sudden, we were all in our houses, and somebody'd be on the door. That's why Randy scared me. And my mama would answer the door, and they'd say, "Look what Jackie did to Henry." I'd beat the snot out of that little boy. Made him bleed. Or any of the other little boys on the street. And my mama said, "I'll take care of it." Let my daddy answer the door, and this is what he told him. Well, I taught her right. So, you know, I was just that bull in the china closet. And I was used to having my own way, because my grandmother always wanted me to have what she thought I wanted. And if money could buy it, I promise you, I had it. Money doesn't buy happiness. I used to think it did, but it doesn't. So then I got on through school and made it to high school, and oh my, what a change. I forgot all the friends that I had, which weren't many, in elementary school and junior high school, because I found me some people that liked to drink. And that was the beginning of the end for me. And I drank, and I drank, and I got through high school. I had an unfortunate incident happen. The guy I had dated all through high school was on his way to Vietnam, and I found out I was carrying his child. That wasn't very much fun. However, I did the right thing and gave that child up for adoption, because I already knew that I wasn't going to be a good mother. I had other plans. And so I went to work at a little retail store there in Houston, and I wanted something better in my life. Now, I forgot to add this. My daddy was a Catholic, and my daddy was a New York Catholic, and my mother was an Arkansas Southern Baptist. Don't ask me how they ever married, but anyway. So we were always made to go to church with my mother. Daddy would drive us, even though he had a hangover on Sunday morning, and drop us off at the church. But we couldn't stay for church, just Sunday school, because he had to eat at a certain time on Sunday afternoon. But anyway, so as I grew up and as I got older and I got through high school and went through all the things I went through, I drank and I drank and I drank. And then I wanted something better, so I wanted a career. So I went and applied for several different things, and I got accepted as a radiology. Back then it was called technician, now they call them technologist. What a deal, man. I got accepted, I went to school, I got to drink all through school, and guess who came home? The man of my dreams came home from Vietnam alive. He smoked pot and I drank. What a deal. And so we got married. And all I'm going to say is he moved me to some town in South Texas, because he was a railroad engineer, called Kingsville, Texas. And you know what? It was a dry county. You could buy beer, but it was a dry county. I couldn't wait for him to get on that choo-choo train and go to Brownsville, so I could go to Brownsville and walk across that bridge 3 or 4 times and buy that $1 tequila and bring it home to Kingsville. I drank myself into oblivion. That poor man never understood why I drank. So, at the age of 24, no, that's a lie. At the age of 26, I got a call one night, and my father had killed himself. was an alcoholic suicide is what it was. And that just sent me on even further into drinking. Poor, pitiful me. Poor, pitiful me. Nobody cared. Nobody understood. All this time, I'm still going to the Baptist church smelling like booze, okay? On Sunday mornings. And 6 months to the day of my daddy dying, my mother died. Poor, pitiful me. So I went to church. They made me go to church. They made me go to church one Wednesday night. Somebody said, "You need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous." And I said, "Huh?" Right in their face. I'd only had a 6-pack by at that time. And I paid it no attention. And then my best friend's mother said to me, "You need to go to Alcoholics Anonymous or I can't talk to you anymore." And that broke my heart. And that was in 1976. So I went to Alcoholics Anonymous. And I walked into this room where they said it was Alcoholics Anonymous. And they had all these little kiddie chairs, you know, like kindergarten chairs. And I went in there and I sat down, and this lady came in and she said, "Who in your family has the problem?" Guess what I said? "I do, bitch. What do you want to know?" It was Al-Anon. She said, "I think you're in the wrong place." I said, "I think so." So I left. She told me where the AA meeting. It was at another church around the corner. Now I knew right where that church was, but I still couldn't get there on time. It was only 3 blocks. It was in an area I grew up in Houston, so I should have been able to find it. And I stopped at the 7-Eleven because we didn't have no cell phones back then. And I called my friend's mother and I said, "I can't find this AA place. They sent me to Al-Anon. I don't go to Al-Anon." And she said, "Where you at?" And I told her. She said, "Look across the street." The church was right over there. And what's really funny is I walked in there and everybody in there was gray-headed and old. And I thought, my God, I'm 26 years old. And that was my first experience with Alcoholics Anonymous. It lasted a whole 7 days. And I went back out, and it doesn't matter about the drunk-a-log. I will tell you, I ended up in a rehab once, and their stay was 30 days, and guess what? I made it 28 days because I was brighter than the rest of those tacks in the drawer with me. And at 28 days, I got released. I should have stayed the 30 days. Because 6 months later, I was off and running again. And I was the tornado and the hurricane in everybody's life. My brother's life, my brother's new wife's life, my ex-husband's life. Because he and I finally got a divorce because we just didn't gel. He was a woman chaser and I was an alcoholic, and those two just don't mix, you know? So he says, so in December of 1982, 3 days before Christmas, which makes that December 22nd, we had just found out that my brother and his wife were going to have their first child. And I hadn't drank in about 6 months. I was so excited. They both worked the evening shift, and so when I got home, I was staying with them because I was already divorcing the second husband, who is like in step 11, boy meets girl on AA campus and falls in lust. That lasted about a month, and we were through. And so I was living with my brother and sister-in-law, and so I came home that night and I was going to celebrate having a niece or a nephew. And I called somebody, and somebody called my brother at work. And he went and got my sister-in-law. I'm sitting in their brand new house drinking and smoking and carrying on. And they came in. And out of all the years that I had been in and out of Alcoholics Anonymous, which was 6, I'd get a year, I'd get 2 days, I'd get a month. You know, it just didn't work for me. They said, if you don't stop drinking, you will never see our unborn child or any future unborn children, and you can pack your bags tomorrow and move out of our house. In that time of that short time it took them to say that, I had an absolute clear conscience, and I heard everything they said. I was totally sober. However, they didn't trust me because they took turns sitting in the bedroom making sure I didn't get up and drink anymore that night. But that was the night of my last drink, December 22nd, 1982. And so I went back to the AA program, and you know, I had tried for years to get sober in Houston, Texas, and that just wasn't the place I was supposed to get sober. And a couple I knew that I went to church with, he had lost his job at Used Tool in Houston, and they were moving to Lufkin because he was going to go to work up there. And they made me an offer. They said, if you want to go back to school, you can live with us, but you have to find a job. You can live with us free, and you can go to school, but you have to have a job to pay for your car. Went to Lufkin, tried to find me a job, went to Nacogdoches, tried to find me a job, couldn't find a job. As an x-ray technician, now known as an x-ray technologist. And so, you know, I came home, and actually, as we were leaving Nacogdoches, there was one of those Snelling and Snelling. Do you remember Snelling and Snelling, Randy? You're probably the only one that could remember it in this room, besides me. Employment services. And I went to them and I filled out this application, and the next day I got up and came to work. Or I got up to go to work, and this lady called me and she said, I have a job interview for you in Tyler, Texas, if you want to go. And I'm like, what? Because you see, I knew where Tyler, Texas was because my aunt and uncle, when I was a kid, because of that alcoholic father, we used to get to come up to Longview and stay. And his parents lived here in Tyler. So I came for this job interview, and that was in May of 1983. I had 5 months of sobriety. And I hated it here, y'all. Every 2 weeks, on payday, I was going back to Houston. And I finally had to learn that if I wanted to get sober, stay sober, and make changes in my life, it wasn't any good for me to come to these rooms and never hang with the people, because that's what I was doing. And I finally quit going home every 2 weeks. And I finally sat down long enough in these rooms to make some friends. And what I got from that was a life experience of learning how to change my life one day at a time. Sure, I would admit I was an alcoholic even when I was drinking. I told people it was my medicine, but I couldn't admit that I was powerless over alcohol. And when I got to Tyler, Texas, I had people. My first sponsor here in Tyler, I used to call her the redheaded Nazi because she was really mean. Y'all think I was mean? This woman was mean. She was what I needed at that time in my life. She gave me some suggestions. And I promise you, if I didn't follow them, I couldn't go fishing after our meeting because they lived on the lake. And that's the only reason I picked her for a sponsor, so I could go fishing. Damn. But what I'll say is, you know, you have to work these steps, and you start with step one. And all those years that I kept going in and out, I'd work step 1, 2, and try to work step 3, but I'd forget what 1 said when I was working on 2. And I'd forget what 2 said when I was trying to work on 3. And I promise you, all those years I was going in and out, no, step 4 wasn't in my vocabulary. It was the idea that I just couldn't do that. I couldn't admit. I couldn't write that stuff down. I couldn't look at it, and I certainly couldn't admit to God and another human being my character defects. Why? Because I was still thinking I was perfect up here. And what happened was, it's the longest 12 to 13 inches in my life, from here to here, to learn how to live one day at a time, and to have just enough willingness to let God come into my life. So what I'm going to tell you is, I'm a slow learner, you know. It took me a long time to learn and to grow. Because I'm sorry, I just could not give everything to God at once. Because I just didn't think that He could do it. You know, when I was drinking, I had all these prayers, and they were called, what we would call today, 911 prayers. Please help me, I'll never drink again, if. But you know, those prayers never worked for me. Never. And they're not ever going to work for me. They might for you, but they're not going to work for me. And so, step one, I finally got to the place where I could admit that my life was unmanageable. And then it was easy, because all of a sudden it wasn't I, the first word, we, admitted. I realized there were other people like me. As mean and intimidating and aggressive as I was. They had just changed their life. Well, how did you do that? Then there's step two. What did step two say? Came to believe a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Excuse me? I wasn't an insane person. It was all you other people out there that was insane. And it was pointed out to me that they weren't out there doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. They had already solved that problem. I was the one out there doing it. Whether it was drinking, whether it was anger, whether it was reaction, it just didn't matter. So I had to learn that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Well, there came that damn willingness again. I had to be willing to let that happen. Then step three, made a decision to turn my will and my life over to God as, what is it? We understood Him. Okay, you can have this, but you can't have my money. I work for my money. It's mine. I'm going to spend it the way I want. Or you can have this, but you can't have that. It don't work that way, people. I tried it for years, even in sobriety, and I was miserable. The book says God doesn't want us to be miserable. We are the source of our own misery. And I was so miserable. And I just wanted it to all go away, and it wouldn't go away. I had to walk through it all. And then I had to write that stuff down. All that stuff I had done to people. And all that stuff people had done to me. I will tell you that when I was in rehab, I'm going to backtrack for just a second. I had to do a 4-step to get out. Whether it was 28 days like I stayed or 30 days. You had to do a 4-step. And the person I did my 5th step with in rehab said to me, I hope you stay sober since you took everybody else's inventory. I said, I will. No, I didn't. It was my mama's fault, my daddy's fault, my brother's fault, my grandmother's fault, my aunt's fault. You know, the ex-husband's fault. And so, you know, I did write all that stuff down to the best of my ability. That's the key, to the best of my ability. Because I'm going to tell you, things have come up since then, and I've had to do more 4th and 5th steps. And was it fun? It was, because it went away. So I did this 4-step with the Nazi, okay, the redheaded Nazi. By the way, her name was Nadine. And she, after I did the 5th step, I said, can I go fishing? She said, no, you need to go home. You need to read 6 and 7. And I was like, really? She said, yeah. She said, call me tomorrow before noon. I said, okay. I went home and I went to bed. And I didn't read 6 and 7. And at 8 o'clock that Sunday night, she called me and she said, I haven't heard from you. I said, that's because I didn't do it. She said, well, I suggest you do it. And I said, okay, tomorrow. She said, no, we'll just read it over the phone. Do you know that woman sat there while I read 6 and 7 to her? And I was like, really? Really? However, the difference is, I heard what it said and what 6 says. 6 says is, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Oh my God, here we go with God, all again. The word all, you know? No, you can have this, but you can't have this. No, I'm still going to smoke, but da-da-da-da-da. No, I'm still going home every other weekend. And it just didn't work. It just didn't. So then I read 7. Oh, that big word, humbly ask Him to remove all our shortcomings. Really? I don't have any shortcomings. It's all those other people out there that have shortcomings. And it was pointed out to me about my anger, my arrogance, my pride. Those are all shortcomings. Biggest shortcoming I had, and can still have, is selfishness and self-centeredness. And all of those things come from a 4-letter word called fear. And that's what I was when I was a child. I was that little kid that was so afraid to let anybody get to know me. So then we had to make a list of all persons we had harmed and become willing to make amends to them. Oh no. Can't do that. I hadn't harmed anybody but myself. Really? Yeah, I had. I could look back at the wreckage in the past of my life and see who I had harmed, what I had done, how I had used them, and what I had taken from them. Now, the only person I ever stole from was my brother. And I knew where his sock drawer was and where he kept them $100 bills wadded up in that sock. So one night I needed some money to go gambling in the back of the bar, so I just went and helped myself to $200. So I put that on that list, amongst other things that I needed to make amends to my brother for. And then step 9 says, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Well, I'm sorry, I'm self-centered and I'm selfish. And I want you to know that I'm sorry I did this to you or your husband or to your wife or whatever. You know? And Nadine said, no, you can't do it that way. And when I made my amends to my brother, and she made me pray before I made amends, because y'all, back in the years that I was in and out of this program, I'd make them amends without thinking about it, just so I would feel better. And she'd make me do the steps. All of it. Oh, I was just, ow! And then we did 10 and 11 and 12, and I love 12. I love them all, but having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And you know what? I could practice those principles in this room really easy. I could smooth and con y'all that I was doing such a good job. But let me get outside here on the road and don't get in my way. Or let me get to work and somebody want me to do something and I just have to have an anger fit at them. Or let me call a customer service representative because my wash machine didn't work. Oh. And let me go home to Houston and try to practice these principles in all my affairs with my family. My family. Ugh. And one day at a time. And only one day at a time. And sometimes still only 1 minute at a time with family can I practice these principles in all my affairs. And what that's given me is this. It's giving me a God of my understanding. And that God changes. As I change, my God changes. He gets bigger. And I get a peace that I never in my life. I didn't know what peace was. Hell, I was 47 when I was diagnosed with ADHD. I never had any peace. That little rat in that mouse cage went on and on and on and on, 24/7. And now today, I have peace most of the time. Please, God, don't let me send a group text that sets everybody off next week. I don't know if I can live with that again. But the interesting thing is I choose not to drink today. And you know what? That first niece or nephew was a nephew. I have 39 years of sobriety. In August, he'll be 39 years old. He's never seen me drink. And he thinks his Aunt Jackie hung the moon and the sun. And I have a niece. First, I wasn't happy about her coming. I like just me and my nephew. We had a good time together. There was 3 years difference in their age. And you know, she kind of grew on me. And I'll never forget, I changed sponsors after a while, and my favorite, most easygoing sponsor who actually probably hit me in the head with a 2x4 more often than Nadine ever did was Jean Burney. But she did it passively aggressively. So, you know, it's like it just snuck up on me. And so I used to come back from Houston and I'd be sitting in a Sunday morning meeting and I'd say, you know, I spent the weekend with my niece last week. I just don't know what it is about that child. She drives me crazy. So one day after the Sunday morning meeting, Jean said, hey, let me tell you why she drives you crazy. You see yourself in her. And I was like, oh shit. And never after that did Catherine ever drive me crazy. Because yes, Catherine is Aunt Jackie. She has a temper. She wants her way. One time they were up here visiting, and it was just before Christmas, and I'd bought all those kids Christmas presents, and let me tell you, I used to spend 3 months' salary on those kids Christmas presents. I was practicing what my grandmother practiced with me. Money can buy love. And we were at a place called Service Merchandise. And we were in there, and I had the kids in the back because Buddy and Ruth was buying John some kind of Atari game, I think. That tells you how old I really am. For Christmas, and they didn't want him to know. And so I had the kids in the back, and Catherine was looking at these toys, and Catherine had never said, I want, and I didn't buy. I'd already bought the damn thing. And she started screaming, I want it, and falling down on the floor, and I thought, oh my God, there I am. and you know, I said no. So we went to Chick-fil-A to eat out there on Broadway. And she wouldn't sit with us. I said, my God, this child is me. However, that child has turned into a beautiful woman. She got in trouble very young in life, driving while intoxicated, and it scared her, and she quit drinking. Because she's got that gene. And she's got the personality of an alcoholic, but it's gone now. And she's been married for 11 years, something like that, I don't know. And about 6 years ago, I was walking around this place. Look at me, I'm gonna be a great aunt. Yes, I am. And then they told me what they was gonna name this little boy. They were gonna name him Elroy. And I was like, the Jacksons? Just call him Astro. I prefer the dog over Elroy. Astro sounds better. I didn't tell them that, but, you know, everybody says, well, have they named him yet? And I said, yeah, but I don't like the name. And this friend of mine that lives in New Mexico said, Jackie, let me tell you what Elroy means. El in Spanish means the. Roy means king. The king. And she said, he's just going to be another little king in your life. And you know what he is? He brings such joy. He's such a good kid. And he's 6 now. And you know what? He's got a brother that's 3 and he drives me crazy. I wonder why that is. So what I'll tell you is this program has made it so that I can live life on life's terms, one day at a time. I don't have rearview mirrors on my elbows anymore, thank God. I'm not always looking behind me to see what's coming up to bite me in the rear. Because there's very little that would come up and bite me in the rear anymore. Do I do this program perfectly? Most of y'all that know me know what my answer's gonna be. Hell no. But I get the opportunity to be around people that I could call family and who understand me. Even if I go off in one of those tangents, they understand. And you know, this last year for this group has been very filled with turmoil of things that we never thought we'd have to deal with. And I thought I was going to lose my mind a couple of times because somebody made me chairman of the board. I don't know why they always make me chairman of the board when I serve on the board. There's been a couple of times I've just wanted to duck my head and run. But that's not how I was brought up in AA, to duck my head and run. It's to ask God for the guidance and to speak to people who understand me and ask their thoughts. And guess what? I hadn't killed anybody yet. I've come close. Verbal assassination can sometimes be as bad as homicide, people. I have to ask God to forgive me for that. But I don't have to ask God to forgive me for physically killing somebody or I just don't have those thoughts anymore. And I get to do things with people I love. My blood family. My AA family. I mean, I even got invited to go somewhere next weekend with the AA family, and I'm like, really? And people think it's a big thing. Or I used to be told people thought it was a big thing. If Jackie invited them to her house. No, it's not. It's just that I'm learning acceptance just like the rest of you, one day at a time. And, for all the people that sat in this room and were sitting in this room when I got here, that have gone on to what I call the big meeting in the sky, God bless them. They loved me till I could love myself. They took my hand and they told me, come all the way in sit all the way down and don't leave before the miracle. Because you see, for 6 years I'd left before the miracle. And this one last story about AA, and then I'm going to read y'all something that's not AA, but it struck me as being so true about AA. When I had 11 years sober, I asked my family to come to my birthday night. Because sometimes Christmas, and I always go home at Christmas, falls on December birthday nights. So I was celebrating my birthday in January. And so my brother said, my ex-sister-in-law says, yeah, we'll be there. And my niece and nephew are all glad to be there. Because Aunt Janie was just great, you know, and they were going to get to come to Tyler. And my brother said, oh, we can't do that. That's Super Bowl Sunday. And I said, okay. You and the horse you rode in on is what I thought. And as soon as I hung up the phone, I'm sure I said it. However, about Wednesday of that next week, my sister-in-law called and said, we're coming. I said, well, when are y'all coming? She said, on Saturday. I said, well, I'm going to be in Shreveport. No, that was even before Shreveport, so I better not. But anyway, so I went on and did what I wanted to do, and they got here at the same time I drove back in my driveway, okay? And I asked my brother to give me my 11-year chip. He said, I can't do that. So he finally conceded to do that. When we went to the AA meeting, it was Circle 12, and it's when Circle 12 was a big group. My brother got up there, and this is what he said. He said, I want to thank you, AA people. Because when I moved my sister up here, I told the two guys that we grew up with, and two of the guys I grew up with, that I used to beat up on, helped move me up here. He said, I told them, she's moved up here to finish it off. We'll be back in 6 months to get her in a box. That's how much faith he had. And there it was 11 years later. And he was grateful for AA. They asked my nephew if he wanted to say anything. No, he didn't. My niece is like, and she's like 5 then or so. No, she's 8, 6, something, I don't know. She's up there waving like this and jumping up and down, and she says, I just want y'all to know I like AA because I like my Aunt Jackie and she likes AA. And you know, those are the type things that I get in life today. And since then, that nephew and that niece have both given me a chip. Wow. What a deal. What a deal this program is. It gives you back your life, and all it takes is just the minute little bit of willingness. Because once you get that little bit of willingness, it grows and it grows and it grows. And you know, it's like the song The Rose. If you don't know it, go look it up and listen to it. It's an awesome song. So I'm going to close with this. As I look back on my life, I realize that every time I thought I was being rejected from something good, I was actually being redirected to something better. Thank you, AA, and you people. You're the better in my life.